Welcome to the April 26th, 2021 Troy City Council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call. Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First on the agenda is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 5 of them this evening. We'll start with C1, which is an exciting one. Announcement of winners of the Kids Poster Design Contest. We are all in this together, sponsored by the City of Troy. And for those of you that weren't aware, the City of Troy hosted a Kids Poster Design Contest for kids ages 5 to 12. And as soon as city facilities reopen, the winning posters will be showcased at the community center, our Troy Public Library, and City Hall to welcome our patrons back. The theme of the contest was, quote, "We are all in this together." I'm very proud to announce the winners this evening and to recognize all of our talented young people that took part in this poster design contest. Congratulations and thank you all for taking the time to submit your posters and sharing your creative ideas to remind everyone that we are all in this together. So, the 3 winners are, number 1, Agnish Adya, number 2, Aditya Yogesh, and 3, Megan Hatto. And I understand we're going to show the winning posters for those watching at home. So the first up is Agnish, who's age 9. He's a 3rd grader at Wass Elementary School, and his poster will be at the Troy Public Library. So I'm hoping that can be seen for the viewers at home right now. Oh, looks like it's going to share for us to see too. Good. So that's Agnish, age 9, a 3rd grader at Wass Elementary. And as soon as the Troy Public Library is back open to the public, which we're working on and hoping for good numbers, you'll get to see that when you enter, and we're very excited to have Agnish's poster there. Beautifully done. The next one is Aditya, who's also age 9 and is a 4th grader at Barnard Elementary School, and his poster will be at the Troy Community Center. Very nice. And finally, we have Megan, who's 11 years old and a 5th grader at Schroeder Elementary School. Her poster will be at Troy City Hall, and we look forward to seeing that there as well. So again, congratulations to our 3 winners. We look forward to seeing these in person at our public facilities when it's safe for all of us to be back in there. We thank all of you who contributed your artwork. We had a great turnout and great response, and it is really wonderful to see how we are all in this together. And I love expressing it through art. They're near and dear to my heart. So thank you to all the participants and congratulations to the 3 winners. Again, look forward to seeing these in person soon, hopefully. All right, C2 is a service commendation for our city assessor, Nino Licari, who is retiring after 175 years as our city assessor.
It feels that way.
Feels that way on some days, I bet. Nino, welcome. I would love to read the service commendation into the record to celebrate you, and I'm sure a few of us would like to say a few words, and I want to give you the opportunity to say a few words as well if you're up for it.
Thank you.
Think of nice words. Don't talk about declining values or anything. Only good stuff. All right, Nino? All right. So whereas Nino Licari began his career with the City of Troy on August 6, 1979 as a personal property auditor, earning a salary of $13,200. In 1981, an opening for a residential appraiser opened up, and Nino was moved into that position. In 1985, Nino trained as a commercial and industrial appraiser. Nino graduated from Bishop Foley High School, and as a student at Oakland Community College in 1980, he paid $16.50 per credit hour. And whereas Nino was promoted to Assistant City Assessor on June 3rd, 1991, and promoted to City Assessor on February 16th, 1998, holding the position of City Assessor for 23 years. And whereas Nino and his dedicated staff have always fulfilled the mission of the City Assessor's Office to accurately inventory and appraise every parcel of property in order to fairly distribute the tax burden which supports the cost of government. As City Assessor, Nino supervises the preparation of the annual assessment roll. He serves as Secretary of the Board of Review, implements policies and procedures, and defends the City of Troy in all matters before the Michigan Tax Tribunal. And whereas during his more than 40 years of service, Nino has worked under 8 city managers, 4 city engineers, 4 planning directors, 4 CFOs, 4 treasurers, 3 city clerks, 4 building officials, 4 fire chiefs, 5 police chiefs, 4 DPW directors, 5 recreation directors, and 7 mayors. He has seen many city employees and city council members come and go. And whereas when Nino started as city assessor, the city's total assessed value was slightly above $928 million. This year, it stands at $7.156 billion. And whereas Nino will retire from the city of Troy on April 30th, 2021, after 42 years of dedicated service, many commendation letters in his employee file, and the utmost respect from the Troy employees, city council, residents, and the Troy business community. And whereas Nino will now enjoy more time with his wife, Tina, married 40 years on April 25th, 2021, sons Chris and Steve, daughter-in-law Heather, and 10-month-old granddaughter Eloise, as well as traveling to their new home in Caseville with projects like building a deck and garage and landscaping the property, playing his guitar, finding new euchre partners, which I know is going to be a big important part of Nino's retirement, and plenty of home improvement projects at their Troy home. Nino is also a voracious reader, reading 2 to 3 books a week, his favorite genre being fiction, crime, and espionage. Now, therefore, be it known that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy take this opportunity to express their appreciation to City Assessor Nino Licari for his professionalism and his many contributions to the city of Troy for the betterment of the community. And be it further known that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy, city management, and the citizens of the city of Troy extends wishes of prosperity, good health, and happiness to Nino during his well-deserved retirement, 26th day of April, 2021. And I, as one of the 7 mayors that you've worked with, Nino, I have to say, when I came onto city council, I heard nothing but good things about you from the very beginning. I know your work ethic, your dedication to the city, and what you've done to see the values of our properties go up and go down, especially in very tough times, the Great Recession, and all the work you've done to help our city work through those times, to work with our residents when they've needed things. And even frankly, today, I was emailing you some questions and you were quick to respond with quick, good information. And it just says exactly who you are and all the value you've brought to our city all these years. And I feel a little bit, in all honesty, you started at the city a month before I was born. So
that makes me feel good.
Yeah, maybe that makes you feel worse than me. I didn't mean it to.
It does.
When I sit here, here's giving you this commendation and saying so many wonderful things about you. I mean, you're really phenomenal, Nino, and really it's a treat for me that I've had this opportunity to work with you for the past 5 years or so. And I know that you will be sorely, sorely missed in City Hall and our city. And I hope that you will. You still have a house in Troy, so you're still going to be around. But I hope we don't lose all that we get from you on a personal level as well, Nina. So I give you my sincerest and warmest congratulations and best wishes. And I know that I don't even know how we're going to replace you, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. So thank you, Nino, from the bottom of my heart. Our city appreciates you. I know there's some on council who'd like to say a few words as well, and then I'll give you an opportunity to say something if you'd like as well. So
thank you.
Who would like to go first? I think Ellen probably would like to go first.
I don't necessarily have to go first, but I definitely can't let you go without a few words, Nino. We go back a ways. The first time I met Nino I was at Delphi in Community and Government Relations, and it's a long time ago now. My kids were very little, and we've had a long path together, living in this community together and serving it together in various roles. You always as the assessor, me in various roles along the way. One of those roles was for me in City Hall there, and where I got to witness Nino deal with the public. Nobody likes their tax assessor, right? And they'd come to the assessing department with questions, frustrations. There was a very heated political environment at one point, and disinformation where people thought their property taxes were going to be raised 29%. And I can remember I was personally trying to help someone understand what that was and what it wasn't. And Nino, very caring, always had his ear open to the hallways and walked around and helped talk that resident off the ledge, if you will, and come to understand. And he always did it with a smile and with grace and professionalism, with a smile, always the smile. I always think of you with a smile on your face. And, you've been a friend in the city, a neighbor, a fellow resident. You've always functioned as a fellow resident for all of us in the city as you served, a very faithful public servant. He's known for loving his euchre game, does. And, I was thinking about that today and thinking when the municipal gods were dealing out cards, they dealt the city of Troy a lay-down loner with Nino Wakari as our city assessor. Both the right and left bower, all one-suited hearts, because you're just all heart. And really appreciate everything you do, appreciate your staff and your leadership with your team and all the hard work they do. And I don't want you to go. I hate this. And I hate the institutional knowledge we're going to lose in you, but I am so happy for you to be able to retire. So
Yeah.
Best wishes to you. Thank you for all you've done for us.
Thank you. You always be my girl.
Wow. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. So Nino, first off, I got to say I'm impressed that you dressed as spiffily for your last council meeting as you have in all past council meetings. So if you had come in with a ball cap and a flannel shirt, I would not have faulted you for it. But that just speaks to your degree of professionalism that you've always have displayed, and a little bit of that showmanship that you've always displayed. And I say that because I remember sitting in the council's study room as a resident watching the budget study sessions, and you were explaining, taxable versus taxable assessments versus assessed values, and you were doing it in such a way that you not only took what most people would find a really dry topic, you made it understandable and you made it really interesting, and that's a credit to you and your abilities. And by making that such a accessible topic, you really played an important role in having City Council make good decisions over the past several decades. But you also really did right by our residents too. But there's a third contingent of people that you really have done right by that I don't think you get all the credit for. And that's you're doing right by your standing up for your colleagues through some pretty difficult times. And when we were going through some difficult times not too long ago, you were very upfront about what you thought the right things were for the city, for the council, and you weren't sparing in your opinion, but it was expressed in such a way that there was no offense taken to it. You could see the heart in it, and you could see the real compassion for all parties involved. And you really looked out for everyone in City Hall. And I want to recognize you for that. It did not go unnoticed. And it's really commendable and says everything to me about your character and how much character you have. So I will miss you terribly. I like I said, I love the showmanship of how you explain things. I'm not sure anyone could ever replace that, but I'm confident I'll probably run into you more now at Kroger or in the neighborhood. And I look forward to that, so we can be a little bit less formal in our communications. So wishing you and your family many, many happy years of retirement. So pleased to hear some of your plans for what you're going to do with all the excess spare time. And I can't think of anyone that deserves it like you do.
Thank you, neighbor. It's good to see you driving around out there.
It's good to be seen.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Abraham covered a lot of what I wanted to say about how you stood up for integrity during the dark times in our city. But to me, I just want to mention it shows how you stayed on your role through the dark times, and you stayed on your role through COVID, and now that you're retiring now with our city in a good place, you're irreplaceable, but I know that we'll find a way, and I just thank you for your many years of service, and you really were a voice of integrity when there was a crisis in our city, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, David.
Anyone else? Why let Nino go wild?
And I'm kind of surprised, those of you that have been council for a while, that you would give me an open mic like this.
Well, hold on, Mayor, don't take it yet. Because Councilmember Erickson Galt raised her hand. Now I'm going to rethink.
Okay, good.
Get the new spot on City Clerk Dixon, just in case Nino gets unruly. All right. All right. Councilmember Erickson Galt, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for your patience with us financially illiterate people, to how you explain Headley over and over and over again for those of us. I think I finally understand it, thanks to you. And
thank you.
I appreciate that you have that similar patience, as Councilmember Hoderick stated, for our public, in understanding that nobody likes to write those tax checks, but you explain it and are helpful and help our residents understand that the city is very much considering this and working really hard to get things right. And especially in all the work that you've done on the tax appeals and so forth, it's thankless work, but you have trudged through it, and it's made a real difference for the city, your being here. And I'm only sad that I haven't been around long enough to get to know you better, but I'm very happy for your retirement. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it very much.
Anyone else before I let Nino go? All right, Nino.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. It's been a long and interesting career. I had to laugh when I saw the oh, by the way, thank you, Cindy. Love you. I know that was all your work. I laughed when I first saw it, because when I hired in, I actually hired in at $11,200, and I thought I was the richest guy in the world because I had been self-employed before that. And they were doing a wage and scale study at the time. And the oddest thing about it was they implemented it in January. So I was there 5 months and I got a 19% raise. And I thought, this is the best job in the world. And then 20 years later, I'll be darned, they did another wage and scale study. And here it is another 20 years after that, and they're doing another one. So all you guys that are stuck there, every 20 years, they're going to do one of these studies for you, and you'll get a raise. So just so you know that, it's worth sticking around for. There's a lot of people to thank. I can't possibly name them all. Ernie Reschke, obviously. Out of high school, I went to Oakland University on academic scholarship for accounting. So the first job I got, I actually was qualified for, but I hated it. I mean, I hated every minute of it. And they had an opening as a residential appraiser, and I knew nothing about it at all, not a thing. And Ernie took a chance on me, and that's where the Oakland Community College coursework came from. You used to be able to get an associate's degree in assessment administration. So I did that on the city's dime, and that's how I learned to be an appraiser, you know, and then obviously all the people over the years that taught me how to do the rest of it. It was a really interesting experiment. I tell people now that I'm the assessor, that had I known I was going to get this job, I'd have gone to law school. Would have been a better background for it. But I've just been thrilled to death the people that I work with. I want to give a special shout out to everyone who shall remain anonymous, who helped out to get rid of the last guy. It was 2.5 years. The stress was unbearable. But everybody came to the plate. Everybody did what they had to do. And we got our city back where it's supposed to be. I remember when Mark Miller hired in deputy planner, then he became the planner, then he became the assistant city manager of services, and now he's the manager. And I have to tell you, I've worked for 7. Mark's in the top 2, so God bless you, Mark. I want to talk about my staff. I'm kind of emotional here. Try to get a grip, maybe tell a little joke. We have a great staff. Linda, and Kristen, Tracy, and she runs the whole department.
I am losing Nino. Is everyone else?
I want to say, God, I hope. Am I still there? Am I still here?
You're back. You're there. Okay.
Can you hear me?
You might want to do that again.
My wife,
we
my
couldn't
wife
hear.
was the reason I took this job. We'd been dating about 3 years, and I wanted to marry her so bad. And my own business was not doing well. And after I got that 19% raise, I went out and bought a ring and asked her to marry me. So thank you all for that. She tells me she's my trophy wife because I got it right the first time. So God bless you. I got to stop because I can't get through this anymore. Thank you all so much. It's been a great run. Thank you very much.
Nino, we love you. We thank you. I thank you for sticking around when you could have left at a bad time, but you cared about the city so much that you stayed, and we needed your stability as well. So thank you.
Got to do the job.
God bless you.
Thank
God bless Tina. You
you.
are amazing, and please give her a big hug when you get home, okay?
I'm doing that right now.
I'm already home. What am I talking about? All right. Thank you. These retirements are hard, everybody. Nino, your video is okay, good. All right, there you go. All right, Nino will be no question missed. So we'll talk about Nino for a long time, I'm sure. Next on the agenda is C3. It's a proclamation for the 52nd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 2nd through 8th, 2021. I'll read this into the record as well. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world and the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations, and whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk, especially those of Troy City Clerk Aileen Dixon and her dedicated staff. The Troy City Clerk's office provides clerical service to the City Council by preparing agendas and recording the minutes of City Council meetings. City Clerk Dixon is the parliamentarian for City Council. And whereas the Troy City Clerk's Office is the official keeper of the records, original minutes of all meetings of the City Council and boards and committees, birth and death records are kept for all events occurring in the city, and certified copies are made available to those eligible to purchase them. And whereas the Troy City Clerk's Office conducts elections in accordance with state and federal law, administers the oath of office to city officials, police sworn personnel, and appointees to boards and committees, provides notary services, issues licenses such as business, temporary merchants, amusement places and devices, peddlers, and medical marijuana grow operations. The filing of petitions, lawsuits, subpoenas, and Freedom of Information Act requests occur at Troy City Clerk's Office as well. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy Mayor and City Council recognize the week of May 2nd through 8th, 2021 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and extends appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Aileen Dixon, and her dedicated staff for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the Troy community. And be it further resolved that we invite all Troy residents to recognize and celebrate the vital role professional municipal clerks have played in our nation's history, as well as their outstanding achievements today and into the future. This proclamation is presented the 26th day of April, 2021. And it's a big deal. Professional clerks, we're proud of Aileen, and we know all the work you've done, especially Aileen this last year, with the elections on top of it. So it's a good time to celebrate clerks as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Next up is C4, a proclamation to commemorate the 106th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, April 24th, 2021. Whereas the Troy community joins human rights advocates and historians from around the world to recognize and mourn the 1.5 million Armenians who perished in the Armenian Genocide as ordered by the government of the Ottoman Empire, which began on April 24th, 1915, with the arrest, exile, and murder of hundreds of Armenian intellectuals, political, religious, and business leaders. And whereas during the 1915 to 1923 genocide, Armenian survivors were forced to witness the slaughter of their relatives and the loss of their ancestral land and property in what is now known as the first genocide of the 20th century. And whereas the government of the Ottoman Empire claimed the lives of 1.5 million Armenians and forced 500,000 more from their homeland, the Armenian Genocide was a terrible breach of human rights and an event that has outraged the world. And whereas the atrocities carried out against the Armenian people were grave and unimaginable, as they were subjected to deportation, abduction, torture, starvation, and more. And as with any violent conflict, Armenian women and children suffered the worst abuses. The bulk of the Armenian population that was displaced from their homes was forced to escape to neighboring as well as faraway countries. Many fled to the United States. And whereas the United States is honored to be a home to a vibrant, growing Armenian American population, this thriving community, many City of Troy residents, are a proud reminder of survival and determination even in the face of extreme injustice. And whereas as Americans, it is our duty to raise awareness of the Armenian Genocide and to participate in the remembrance and mourning of the loss of innocent lives a century ago. And whereas the state of Michigan declared in Act 558 of 2002 that April 24th of each year shall be the Michigan Day of Remembrance of the Armenian Genocide of 1915 to 1923, in memory of the victims of the genocide and in honor of the survivors. And whereas the failure to learn from the past allows history to repeat itself, as the world saw during the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War, when the military forces of Azerbaijan and Turkey attacked the Armenian civilian population of Nagorno-Karabakh and its churches and civic buildings, resulting in casualties and loss of ancestral land and property, motivated by the same genocidal campaign that their ancestors suffered 106 years earlier. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council proclaimed April 24th, 2021 as the Day of Remembrance of the Armenian Genocide and joins the Armenian American community in its commemoration of the 106th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide in an effort to educate others about the tragic loss of life, land, and human rights of the Armenian people and the crimes of genocide committed against them, as well as Greeks and Assyrians due to religious and political beliefs. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council encourages all residents to raise awareness about the Armenian Genocide, honor the memory of the victims, and also to honor and remember the survivors and their descendants. It's presented this 26th day of April, 2021. Next up on the agenda is C5, a Troy Trails Phase 3 JC Park Community Engagement Update, and that'll be presented by Public Works Director Kurt Bovenseat. Nice to see you, Kurt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. IT, if we could bring up the presentation, please. Just a short little presentation to let Council know. I know we talked a little bit about it last week during the study session, but just to give contents of our results of the community feedback for the JC Park Phase 3 trail. Next slide, please. Just kind of a brief overview of where we came to where we're at today. In December of last year, Council approved the capital expenditure to use AEW, one of our current consultants, to start taking the concept of a Phase 3 trail through JC Park and start engineering that. Through the winter of 2021, that engineering was done, and we saw that the concept needed to change a little bit. During that engineering phase, we also did some direct engagement with the residents that abutted JC Park on the east side. Through that engagement, several residents brought concerns with the trail that it was too close to Hopedale and too close to their property. So we were able to make those adjustments during the engineering phase and move that trail further away from the property. In fact, one of the residents that was very vocal against the trail made contact with us and was really appreciative and then supported the trail in its new location. As committed last December, once the engineering phases was done, we were going to open it up to a larger community engagement. And as you may know, with COVID, it's very difficult to engage a community, especially a project like this. So we did several social media posts to try to get the word out there that the engagement was available and that we were collecting information from the public. We also wanted to make sure that we collected the participants that used the first and second phase. So we posted yard signs along those trails to encourage people to fill out the feedback on the city's website. Ashley Levin, the City of Troy's project manager, did a great job, which was called a storyboard using GIS, and really told the story on how we got to Phase 3 and allowed people to leave comments specifically to Phase 3. Next slide, please. Again, this just shows you can go back one more. This just shows that we did move that trail, which was in the previous slide, orange, which is now purple. We moved that trail considerably away from the residents on Hopedale. Next slide, please. We did have a total of 76 respondents to the engagement. Although if you look at the numbers, they don't add up to 76 because a lot of them left multiple comments that fit in multiple categories. What I found most interesting with this infographic is it really shows that we're kind of at a point where people want the connectivity of the trails and to connect regionally, and that we have overwhelming support of our ideas on a Troy trail. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, specifically to connectivity, with this type of public engagement, usually you get the people that are extremely for or extremely against a project. You don't usually get the neutral. Luckily, we saw a lot of support, but what we saw was the people that lived directly next to JC were more interested in keeping that trail system for the neighborhood, and they were more interested in creating a loop in the park similar to some of our other trails through Raintree, Robinwood. And then you saw another half of the participants, the other 16.5%, that really wanted that connectivity. It would be difficult to create a loop in JC. I'm not saying it can't be done. One of the difficulties to it is that we would be running a loop along the residents on the west side of JC Park, and there's no natural buffer like on the east side of the park. The nature preservation also was a concern with some of the participants in the engagement. However, when we were looking at some of these comments specifically, there was a misunderstanding that by widening the trail on the east side of the park that we would be removing a lot of those Austrian pines. Unfortunately, we couldn't communicate that enough through the public engagement, but we did take that into consideration. So I think if those people were to find out that we're not removing those trees, I think that 13.9 of a concern of natural preservation would decrease a little bit. Overall, I think it was a pretty successful engagement. It wasn't enough to change the engineering design of the plan, so we're going to be moving forward with the design. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be bringing to council an award to a contractor. One thing that's going to be contingent on bringing that to council is the fact that we're going to have to get considerable permits through Eagle and the Water Resource Commission because of that pedestrian bridge that crosses the Renshaw Drain. So barring any hiccups with those permitting applications through the state and through the county, we're excited to hopefully start this project late summer, early fall. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
I was muted. I muted myself. Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate you bringing this to us tonight. First, appreciate you working with your team to get the community engaged on this topic and doing it in a way that got a pretty decent response, I think, from a social media standpoint, and not just responses, but I think meaningful responses. I think the information provided by the residents who participated were detail specific, which I think helps. And I will take any questions from council at this point regarding the presentation. I know there's been some submitted online or earlier email, but Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kurt, for this whole process. This is fantastic. My question is, do we know how many of those residents that responded live close to where the trail is? I know that it was, I think we allowed anyone to respond, but do we know what percentage of those people, and was the sense of the people that live near it supportive, or do we have any kind of breakdown of that?
Thank you. We don't have that specific data. In previous engagements, we did require residents to leave their address. We decided not to do that because we did want it broader and we wanted people to honestly answer. So they were able to leave an anonymous feedback as well. However, those that left their name, we did look up their address in our system to see approximately where they live. And that's why I can say that the majority of the people that wanted the loop live directly next to JC Park.
Okay. Thank you. I know, and this is for the whole community, so their opinion matters too, but thank you. No, that's great.
Thank you. Kurt, as a quick follow-up to that, and then I'll go to you, Rebecca. Sorry, is it that they want a loop and not the other connection part, or is it they want both? Could you get a sense from that?
Yeah, they wanted a loop and they wanted that park to be their own, if you will. We classify our parks in two different categories, community parks and neighborhood parks. And this would be considered a community park because it has large parking and it becomes more of a destination. I think some of the residents that wanted that loop look at that park as more of a neighborhood park and may not want it to be a destination park.
Okay. That makes sense. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd asked a question prior to the meeting in our council questions. And I think that the comment from you, Kurt, I think is just a very important one. And so just wanted to reiterate that. And if there's anything you want to add to that as well. So I'd asked a question about the original decision to pave these trails. And I'm a total fan and a big supporter of this entire trails and pathways program, which we've seen in the resident survey is a real priority for our residents. As a runner, a long time distance runner since the age of 15, and I'm in my 40s right now. So I've been running on lots of sidewalks, roads, trails, pathways, all my life, a long, long time. And I have to say, I do love running on wood chips. And so that was, as I was reading the resident comments, it did make me wonder, well, maybe there is some value to keeping that forested trail wood chipped, preserving the trees and vegetation, and considering the loop that would be paved. But my assumption was the reason for paving those pathways is, partly for ADA accessibility reasons, really to make sure that all of our pathways allow for all residents, whether you're in a wheelchair, no matter your ability to be able to get around, that you can access and really enjoy those trails and those areas because they're for all residents. as well as thinking, having not long ago pushed a stroller, so it makes it easier for strollers and bikers. So it's not just for walkers and runners, but it's for, a range of things. So I just thought that's really important to really point out the accessibility component. And I don't know, Kurt, if you want to stress that anymore, because I think that's something I'm very proud of. And I think more and more, we're going to just continue to hear of how we make sure everything that we do, and I know that we do as a city, is accessible to all residents.
Thank you. I think you summed it up very nicely. When we're developing opportunities for our constituents, we want to make sure we have a very inclusive type opportunity. So that is very important. In fact, later on in the agenda, you'll see the report on the Firefighters Park Pathway, which its complete design is based on ADA accessibility. And that was a concern that was brought to us by a constituent, Pam Brady, who had difficulty getting out there and watching her family members play. We still have opportunity for runners that want to run on wood chips. My daughter's a cross-country runner. She does not like running on hard surfaces either. But I think as long as we continue to have those types of opportunities like Huber Park, and we look at our regional trail or our global idea of our Troy trails, we have to make sure that we include everyone in that opportunity. And additionally, along with the questions you asked, it also makes it eligible for any future grant funding, because when you look at the TAP grant funding, they have to be AASHTO compliant, and AASHTO is a transportation standard for pedestrians, that we have to make sure that our trails are compliant if we were to ever get federal funding to be able to connect to our trails.
Thank you.
Glad you brought that back up, Rebecca. I thought of it as well. I'm hoping we would get publicized again. So thank you, Kurt, for that. Additional, Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Kurt, we hear consistently on council that the preservation of green space is very important to our community. We saw it in the resident survey results that were presented at council just recently. And so I appreciate your comments about putting the comments in context for the nature preservation, and your belief that 13.9% would actually drop down based off of the clarification of what trees might get impacted. Is there a number of landmark trees that may be impacted by these trails, so that we can kind of have that conversation with residents when we talk about two things that are very important to them: trails and pathways, and preservation of green space, which sometimes are a little bit at odds with each other?
Good question. Thanks for the opportunity. So not quite as long ago as Nino started his career, but I was at one time the city forester. So I have an absolute passion for trees as well in the city. The short answer is zero. There will be zero landmark trees removed. We pride ourselves when we go out and personally walk this area with the engineers multiple times. I probably up to 8 or 9 times walking this area, making sure that we're avoiding any landmark trees removal, and also avoiding any disruption to the drip line of the tree, to make sure that landmark tree not only stays, but stays healthy with it. The objective is to really highlight the green space and not just be able to drive by it, but actually walk through it and really appreciate it with our trails going through it.
Thank you, Kurt. That's a great and thoughtful answer, which doesn't surprise me given the thoughtfulness you've put into the trails plan over the past few years. Thank you.
Absolutely. I bet residents don't know that, so I'm glad you shared that. I mean, that's an important aspect of it. I don't think they realize what a champion they have in you in working to design these in a way that enhances, not destroys. Right? That's kind of I know that's your motto, so that's great to hear. Any other questions from council? Okay. All right, Kurt. It seems like moving forward that we'll expect to hear back from you when you need us to weigh in and approve some things, most likely. right? All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening. We don't have any carryover items or public hearings, so we'll move on to public comment. Tonight's public comment, I believe we have one email, which could be submitted to publiccomment@troymi.gov. As a reminder, also, you could leave a voicemail, 248-524-3302. And our next meeting, I believe, will have additional procedures as well, assuming we will be meeting virtually at our next meeting. So we'll talk about those in due time. So City Clerk Dixon, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. The public comment tonight is from Mahendra Kenkri. Dear Council, congratulations on the 2021-22 budget plan that takes care of the future needs of our city. Many residents were worried if the pandemic would impact the ability of the city to provide normal services. It was nice to know that this is not the case at this point. Many thanks to the city manager and his team for a job well done and the council for its leadership.
All right, that concludes public comments submitted. Thank you, Mahendra. I'll start by saying thank you. Appreciate those nice words, and it's good to know someone out there is watching as well. I'm looking at the budget documents, and we appreciate that. Any other response from council or city administration to public comment this evening? All right. Next up, there are no postponed items, so we move on to regular business. I1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening, and there are no city council appointments, so we'll move on to I2, board and committee nominations. I do have a mayoral nomination this evening to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the term expiring April 30th, 2024. I will nominate Joseph Byer.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton. The mayor nominates Joseph Byer to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the term expiring April 30th, 2024. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening. Next up are city council nominations, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just give me a second. I have a number of nominations today, so let me just give me a second to pull it up here. If I can find it. This is a big agenda packet today. Let me go back up. Okay, so my first nomination is for the Building Code Board of Appeals. It's to re-nominate Sandy Friesen for the term expiring January 1st, 2025.
Or
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt. The City Council nominates to the Building Code Board of Appeals Sandy Friesen for the term expiring January 1st, 2025. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, yep. And then for the Charter Revision Committee, I would like to re-nominate Mark Bartnick and Toby Beekner, and nominate Sue Matthews for the term expiring April 30th, 2024.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Hoderick. City Council nominates to the Charter Revision Committee for the term expiring April 30th, 2024, Mark Bartnick, Toby Beekner, and Sue Matthews. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
And to the Parks and Recreation Board, I would like to nominate, sorry if I mispronounced the name, it's Govind Rajan, I believe, the Thai, for the term expiring September 30th of 2022.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, the City Council nominates Govind Rajan Batai to the Parks and Recreation Board for the term expiring September 30th, 2022. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and then for the person, I would like to nominate for the Personnel Board, renominate Jeffrey Forrester, Pamela Gordon, and Jane Parpart for the term expiring April 30th of 2024.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Hamilton. The City Council nominates to the Personnel Board Jeffrey Forrester, Pamela Gordon, and Jane Parpart for the terms expiring April 30th, 2024. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and then finally for the Traffic Committee, I would like to reappoint, not reappoint, but
Nominate.
renominate. Yeah, thank you for the word. Cynthia Wilshire and nominate Abira Manda Masundari Swaminathan for the term expiring January 31st of 2024.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Abraham, the City Council nominates to the Traffic Committee for the term expiring January 31st, 2024, Cynthia Wilshire and Abira Masundari Swaminathan. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Motion carries. That's it tonight, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Okay. That concludes I2, Board and Committee nominations. Next up is I3. There is no closed session requested this evening. So we move on to I4, which is fiscal year 2021 to 22 proposed budget. It's a continuation of our discussion from last Monday. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Mark Miller. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of council. We did have our study meeting for the proposed budget last week, and we have compiled a number of questions and answers and submitted them to council. They should be posted as part of our agenda. And this slot on our regular meeting is kind of like the last swing at the bat to ask questions or bring up certain points related to the budget, because the budget hearing will be at our next meeting. I think is it May 10th, the date. So it really, there's nothing organized. We're just here to answer any questions or help provide any information to help you deliberate up until the public hearing on May 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Miller. There have been several questions submitted and responses given. Does anybody have an additional question at this point? Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga.
I just have a quick question that occurred to me. This weekend, I was out with my son and some residents at a playground that's a bit outdated and there's some broken elements to it. And it made me think how, and wanted to ask the question is, how do we go about prioritizing when it comes to play structures and parks, which ones get fixed kind of with that new nice turf that we have in Bolin Park and Firefighters Park versus others? Is that part of a capital development plan, or how does all that fit into, when things are updated or not? Because residents, they ask those questions, like, why can't we have what they have in Bolin Park? And just wondering how best to answer them.
Mayor, I'll take a little shot at it, and then Kurt, you can finish up. Actually, we have staff who are certified to be able to analyze those play structures and for ADA compliance. And I'm sure Public Works has a process of analyzing and when they need to be replaced and then prioritize it. And Kurt, can you fill that in a little bit more?
Certainly. City Manager Miller is correct that we have several certified playground safety inspectors. There's different levels of inspections that we do, and probably the longest process is in the beginning of the season. If anyone visited Firefighters Park most recently, we had to close a portion of that down because we noticed that one of the chains were broken through our normal inspection, and then had to order parts. Playground replacement, we have gone through a lot of them over the last 20 years, and they do have about a 20-year life cycle to them. We do have several in the upcoming 5-year capital plan that will be replaced. JC Park is actually scheduled to be replaced, and council did approve that several meetings ago. And then we're working to get that done as well. So we inspect them thoroughly at the beginning of the season and then throughout the season. We really do rely on constituents to report anything as well, because we can't be everywhere all the time. In fact, I know Councilman Hamilton, he's actually reported some issues at a playground, and we appreciate that, and we took care of that. So we encourage people calling, but they are thoroughly inspected several times throughout the year.
Thank you. That might be a good opportunity to also mention the MyTroy app, or this online where you can submit any of those. If you have an issue with anything in the city, Kurt, maybe you can direct me where they should go for that, because for some reason it's escaping me. But sometimes the quickest way is to submit a request through the portal online, right, Kurt?
That is correct. That portal is designed where, depending on the type of concern that you're reporting, it can either be done on our city's website, or if you download the Troy app, you can also do it through there. So depending on the concern, it actually automatically will email the appropriate department. So if it's done on a weekend and you were to select a playground or park issue, we do have staff working on the weekend that could take care of that immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango. Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton?
Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank city staff for my barrage of questions that I always have every year for the budget. You guys have done a fantastic job answering everything and responding to everything, and I really enjoy learning everything to a detailed level, and you've helped facilitate my nerdy engineer self, so I thank you for that. I think I pretty much support the budget as is. There are a lot of things floating around in my idea for different ideas for projects I'd like to see the city do, but I kind of wanted to wait till the American Rescue Plan kind of comes into play, because we may be able to leverage some of those dollars for some of the ideas I have, and we can always change things with budget amendments. A budget is an active document that isn't fixed in stone just because we approved the original version of it. I know I mentioned in the previous meeting, and Public Works Director Kurt Bovenseat mentioned in his earlier item in the agenda packet that he recommended starting a pathways committee for our Trails and Pathways program as a subcommittee of Parks and Rec Board, which I think is a great idea. And the main purpose of that would be to develop a Trails and Pathway Master Plan, one that's newer, that is newer than 12 years ago, which was one of the big one that was more focused on complete streets came out. And I think, considering our residents through the survey and from talking to us have shown how interested they are in this, I think that's relevant. I don't know if that's something that needs to be discussed for the budget. I didn't really know where in this meeting to talk about this, but it's a major part of our budget. We're putting $750,000 a year towards our Trails and Pathways program. So I want to, I don't know what the next steps are for that. I don't know if you need council approval to kind of create a plan for that or what it would look like. I'm not exactly sure the best way to do that, but I think that's something we need to do and something we need to discuss. And then talking about playgrounds and parks too, I have been hearing a lot from residents about other communities. We've seen this in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, having splash pads, other communities having a lot more amenities in their parks, and it's something I want to consider investing in. Again, I don't think this is something we can do in this budget with 2 weeks till our approval, but it's something I have in mind for things I might want to invest in. So something I'm keeping in mind, maybe rescue plan dollars can replace Parks and Recreation income loss that we had last year, and thus a revenue loss, and thus we can maybe invest in that. So maybe I'll save some of those ideas for that discussion. The only real question I had was what, and this may be for Mark or city engineer, is what work is being done for Rochester Road, Barclay to Trinway? I know we're spending about $2 million on that in this fiscal year. I don't think the main work is being done until 2024. I was just curious, is that right of way attainment and things like that? Or I know most of it is federal dollars, but I was curious what the $2 million expenditure. Hey, Bill, there you are. I was wondering what the $2 million expenditure in fiscal year 2022 is for the Rochester Road Trinway Barclay project.
The majority of that is for the right-of-way phase. We'll be obligating the right-of-way phase in the fall. MDOT runs on the federal fiscal year, so October 1. So it's the start of the right-of-way phase. Right-of-way phase is funded at $5 million. So I've got it split over a couple of years.
Got it. And then 2024 calendar year is where the actual work is getting done.
Correct. And,
okay.
And the issue with the construction phase, it's a little different. We just pay as we go. MDOT holds the contract, so the federal dollars funnel through MDOT. So what you see in the major road fund in the construction phase is just our share, and it's spread through major roads, water fund, and sewer fund. And then the right-of-way phase is different because we pay for the right-of-way, and then we get reimbursed from MDOT the 80%. So that's why you see the bigger numbers for the 2 years in the right-of-way phase. Makes sense. And as always, you do an amazing job leveraging federal dollars and state dollars for all this. And I'm going to call you out during the consent agenda for a couple of things you have there, doing an amazing job leveraging those dollars. So thank you for that. But no, I'm that's all I need from you, but I'm very happy about this budget as a whole. Like I said in the last meeting, I really feel like we're moving forward and investing in our future. And the discussion will keep going, and we may have some budget amendments in line as we talk about the rescue plan and everything, but I think we're on the right path. So thank you.
I can almost guarantee we'll have some budget amendments. But go ahead, City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go backwards a little bit to Councilman Hamilton's question and comments. About the trails. Kurt Bovenseep, the Public Works Director, and I have had conversations, and we feel we're at a time where we could use the help of a consultant. We haven't decided who or how we're going to select them, but I would imagine council would be part of that. And we can use the existing capital funds of $750,000 a year, a portion of that fund, because it would be a very minor portion of that. We can use it for the planning of the project, but you will be kept totally abreast of it as we move forward.
Mark, do you need consensus from us or some formal action as it relates to a subcommittee, or is now not the time for that? Would you like to come back to us with something to formalize that in the future, or are you comfortable with, well, what would you like? Maybe you don't want anything from us on that as it relates right now, but I know that eventually we'll have to formally form that subcommittee, but you have enough to do it to bring it to us on your own, I guess is my question.
Mayor, I'm a little confused because what Kurt said is that he's utilizing a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Board, and that's working. If we continue that route, I don't think we need to create anything else. They can continue to work as they've worked in the past.
Well, I'm not even aware like who's on that board, or we don't really see. I don't recall reading minutes from them or really knowing the discussion that's taking place on it. So if it's already existing, I'm really not privy to the details of it, I guess.
Well, Mayor, we can give you a report what we've done, and you could give us input in what you would like. If you would like something that's not necessarily a subcommittee of the Parks and Rec Board, if you want to look at going a different route.
Yeah, Mark, I think
But let me just finish really quick. We have to be careful because we can't have a subcommittee of the council. It would have to be another sort of ad hoc group that's separate. And if that's the way you think we should go, but I would like to have Public Works Director kind of submit a report of what we've done in the past and see if that's meeting your needs or not.
All right. It might be a misunderstanding. The response from Kurt today, sorry, Kurt, I think was that he would suggest forming an official subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, similar to the Green Space Committee. So maybe that was and opening up the opportunity to those first who participated in the past. So I think maybe we're all talking about similar things, but maybe viewing them a little bit through different lenses. But I think a report would be great, and kind of, it's not necessarily a conversation that needs to happen right this minute. It's also what I'm hearing. So, Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga, were you commenting on?
I was just going to alert folks that was a question raised, because I'm totally supportive with Councilmember Hamilton. So I asked that question: who served on that committee? When was it formed? What was it like? Learned it was a subcommittee. So I know there's a lot of good answers that Kurt provided. So, and he can probably share more now, but there's a lot there. The other question I wanted to ask, it kind of also follows what Council Member Hamilton is sharing, is when there are ideas or suggestions from the community around things, is I'm still trying to learn when is the best time to raise that. Should we wait until we have our study sessions in November, or is it something we bring them up as they come and we see, if there's depending on what kind of expenses involved with that. Like, for example, committees, I did ask that question with budget, what expenses are associated with starting a new committee, and learn that there's just some administrative small cost, but it's not a major cost. So things like that, just trying to, for example, a lot we've been talking, or there's some conversation that if there was ever a demand by the police to have a social worker, just thinking of some things that we hear about in the community, when would it be appropriate to bring us something like that? Do we wait until November, or we just surface it and see what might be out there and what the demand is? So just would love some guidance on when do we bring ideas to you.
Mark, can I answer that first on behalf of the council?
Sure.
I think, Rebecca, we set the policy, right? So we can bring ideas to city management whenever we feel, one, we have consensus to do so, and two, whenever we deem it in the best interest of the city to do so. So I would tell you it's kind of funny to have it publicly, but never hesitate to bring something forward, a good question, a good idea. Recognize that City Manager Miller and his team is only going to respond or react to it if there's consensus from all of these four of us to do so, right? I don't think it's probably wise to wait. Some things we shouldn't wait until fall, right? If something's more timely that comes up. I would probably suggest, the night before we're approving a budget, it's not a great time to try to bring an amendment or something. I think that used to happen a little bit in the past. Maybe we could do a little better than that with this council. But I imagine Mark would say something along those lines to start out, because it's up to us. But City Manager Miller, what was your thought on that?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, there's two tracks here. One, you brought up the issue of social workers, and I'll let you know that our police department is actually looking into it. There's two local communities, Livonia and Canton Township, who have hired consultants to work with their police departments. And I know our police department is coordinating and trying to figure out what the best route would be. So that's sort of something not know about. And it will be coming to you in some form. It wasn't ready for this budget cycle, but it was something that we thought we'd work on, and we might, we're gonna have an influx of federal money. Maybe we can fund it with the federal money. We're not sure, but we'll see. But the other track is these bigger initiatives related to the budget and a strategic, for the lack of better terminology, because we haven't termed it, the strategic planning process. I have already started thinking about writing on a board what topics we'd want to look into. So I think anytime that you think there's a topic that should be thrown into the mix, the sooner you get it to me, the better. If you have ideas and things you want us to look into. we're building a new process, and what will be important in that process are the major issues that City Council cares about. And maybe we'll need to, and once I'm kind of thinking on the fly a little bit, which is a dangerous thing, maybe we'll start to develop some ideas and things and kind of get consensus about some of the major things you want us to look into before we actually start the strategic planning process. So the simple part of answer that I want to get back to is we would appreciate any input from council about things that you sort of want to deliberate and look into for the next budget cycle. That's the way it would work the best. Mayor, I just want to add one thing. We're in a strange time right now with COVID and a lot of these other dollars coming in. So we're going to be amending our budget a lot more, and we're going to be seeking your input, maybe within a month or two regarding the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. So we're sort of in a more fluid budgetary era than ever. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Mark. Additional questions? Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, or is it a new topic, or maybe?
Yes, just a quick follow-up on that, just to say that, thank you, that is so helpful. I am still a strong advocate if there's a way that going forward with our planning, we can try to just map out some of those priorities, and then the strategies around kind of what do we hope in terms of short-term, medium-term, long-term kind of outcomes around some of that, but still would love some opportunity for us to kind of really, because I feel in last November, we were responding to a need for input around certain areas, but to also have space where we're just kind of, in some ways, I don't want to say dreaming, but, what are we hearing from our community? What would we love to see, and be able to kind of map out, some of that over the long term. So I'm still a fan of kind of bringing some of the strategic kind of, again, thinking of outcomes, thinking of why to prioritize one thing one year versus another year, and some of that. So more to talk about in the future.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I just a comment on the consultant idea for the trails and pathways. I've been to a couple of the training sessions regarding pathways. I think 2 or 3 of them where they talk about the value of using a consultant with expertise in this area. And I guess I just personally, I can see why that is the idea that is being kicked around, and would be supportive of that. And then in terms of the experience, in terms of the process of resident input, I think one thing that's of value is the history that that we have with the discussions with the public on this, and that we learned that the trails, like politics, are very local. So, really engaging meaningfully, as Kurt Bovenseep was explaining earlier on this most recent project, directly with the neighbors impacted there, really seems to yield some very, very positive results. So it's almost like rolling subcommittees of input. And I suppose a consultant would be able to factor what we've experienced in the community, where we go in fits and starts on, everybody wants the trails, but just directionally how to get there is something that we seem to have finally navigated. And I don't want to lose that momentum that we've had for moving forward. And I just say that as a little cautionary. We need to really factor that experience in, is my thinking. So I would want to, I'm not quick to want to say I want a consensus on forming a new subcommittee or whatnot. I would want to hear from a consultant and from the people doing the work, what works for helping us get the best engagement as we move forward. Because I don't know that that's absolutely the right answer. Maybe it is, but I don't know. So I want to think on that personally. And secondly, is just a higher order question. Discussion about the budget and financial planning, even in the Hoderick household. As we talked with our financial planners, it's the factoring in of inflation that we are likely to see going forward for multiple reasons out there. And my assumption is that our amazing CFO has that kind of thinking factored into the budget process from a conservative standpoint. The costs of the work we want to do going forward are likely to be higher than what we've experienced the past couple years. The undesignated fund balance, I guess, is an area that comprehends that, but just, are we factoring in this discussion about inflation to make sure our budget is conservatively prepared to absorb that?
Were you looking for a specific answer to that, Ellen? Was it just a comment? I'm sure.
Well, it's confirmation that it's factored in. So I think
is on the line. He is.
So, Councilwoman Hodrick and I talked a little bit about this, and I failed to call Rob Melzak to kind of warn him of the question. But we're aware that that the potential for inflation is coming, and we have had some bids come in high lately, and and we do have a fund balance, and I think going forward we're going to have to be extra careful each year in our capital plan to really look at what's happening out with pricing, and not just carry over the capital costs from year to year, but actually analyze it closely and rise the cost if we think it's going to happen. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, Council, I think you've seen it on the last couple of agendas. We've had budget amendments, and those budget amendments are due to the cost going up. The reality is there's not enough workers right now, and everyone's fighting for the same resources. My concern, to your point, Ms. Hodrick, is that when you look at the American Rescue Plan, supposedly if we're going to have to spend this money, and every community in America is going to have to spend this money in 4 years, I just imagine inflation being much higher than we see it today. I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's just my opinion that we're going to see inflation go way up. So what does that mean? That means that when you look at what, the engineers said, hey, a year ago, this project might have been $750,000 for trails and pathways. It's going to be much more. That's the reality.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mark. Ellen?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to demonstrate that we're, frankly, to our residents who are expecting us to be good stewards of our resources, that, we are comprehending this. We are thinking, we're already experiencing it with budget amendments, and we're prepared to do so going forward. That's really, really the point. So thank you.
You're welcome. Additional council questions or comments regarding I-4, the budget? I actually have one. I did talk to City Manager Miller a little bit about this earlier. And we talked a little bit about it last Monday night, but I'm really struggling with the concept of increasing our rates at the Aquatic Center for this season when we, one, don't know what it's going to look like because of COVID, and two, without the opportunity to have a long-term look at what we're doing with the Aquatic Center in general. And my gut tells me the best thing to do for the city, for the residents, and for non-residents is to freeze rates for this year, pending a deeper dive in the fall as we look at strategies and a longer-term plan for the Aquatic Center. And I guess I'd like to see consensus from council as to that direction, assuming it's needed, City Manager Miller. I just, because we're in the middle of this COVID crisis, in a sense, we don't know how things are going to look. We do know that there's a good option, good potential that we'd be able to recover lost dollars related to COVID losses from federal money. So I'm less concerned about that aspect of losing the revenue. I think it's hard to budget as to what kind of revenue the Aquatic Center is going to bring in for this season anyway, not knowing what our capacity limits will be, regardless of what the price increases are. And I hate to kind of open it up I essentially throw it on all of you. I don't mean to do it that way, but unfortunately that's the way our system works. I'm not I'm not able to do the behind the scenes work and go to everybody and kind of to do that. So those are my thoughts, and I told you last week I'm not comfortable with those increases, and I would like to see us tie any increases to a much broader aquatic center plan and vision. I also think that part of the issue is I look at the aquatic center and a lot of our amenities in this city, including the community center, as quality of life assets and things that we provide to our city residents. And while it's wonderful when they are self-supporting with user fees and such, I'm not sure that we should be always looking at our community assets as trying to make them strictly revenue neutral, when one of our jobs on council and in city government is to provide a good quality of life for our residents. So that's a much broader and deeper conversation, also not something we have talked about with this council and even in previous council. So that's kind of where I am. I may be completely alone on this one, but that's kind of where I feel, and I'm happy to talk about it if we need to, or how, but I guess the very most I'd like to get consensus to freeze things as we are pending a more long-term plan and deeper dive. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I asked about this in our council questions. How much would the anticipated increase in revenue be from these changes in prices? And the response we got was 32,000 in season passes and then 10 to 15,000 in dailies. So that would be about 47,000 for the year. So yeah, I don't think this is, you're right that long term we need to have a discussion about the future of the aquatic center. But I think I'm with you on this, that for this year, given COVID, given uncertainty, given that our residents have been through enough, we can do it for 1 year, reevaluate next year and see where we're at then. We definitely need to look at the pricing compared to the competition nearby. And I know it's not fair competition because Oakland County puts tax dollars into their parks to kind of subsidize some of it. And they just had a big bump of their Parks and Rec millage. So they got quite a bit more funding as well. But I think this is reason. I think 47,000 given for 1 year, given the state of our budget and how financially solid we're looking, I think it's a totally reasonable request, and I'm on board with you, Mayor.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga. Thank you, David.
Yes, Mayor. So I also agree. And the reason is at this point, due to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order, which we don't know when it may be changed, is essentially half of TFAC is closed. And that is essentially the youth, the children's section. It is both the little water slide pool as well as the wading pool. And I asked a council question just because I heard that in the last meeting. And I thought, well, that's the part of the park I use with my son. And when you see half of the residents and non-residents who go in and use it are in that section for small children. And my son would not be in a position to use the main large pool, which is the only one that's open. So I can't support raising rates at such a cost when essentially half of the pools are closed, and those are young children. We probably won't be in a position to be able to really use it, or we'd have to use it with great caution to be able to bring a really young child into the main pool, if at all. So my bigger concern is communication of this to residents and all users, is that we need this on the website when people come, because I'm afraid a lot of people who use the parks are those young children. And if they don't know in advance, they'll come, they'll pay and find out, oh, actually, all those pools that they were going to use, they're actually not open. And so we need clear signage when you go to pay. We need it on our website, our social media. And then again, hopefully those orders will change depending on our risk level, but we don't know. So for all those reasons, I support freezing the rates.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I was also concerned when I heard about, the rates being raised at the last budget meeting. And so I do support freezing it for right now. There's just so many unknowns with COVID. And it's so hard to know what everything's going to look like, by the time the pool's open. And I agree with Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga. There's a possibility that, with such limited capacity, with certain areas potentially being closed, people may not be getting as much for their money. And on top of that, we're increasing rates, which could create a lot of dissatisfaction with residents that are coming to use the facilities. So I think it's best to try to at least keep things where they are, definitely communicate, what's happening right now with COVID, because people understand that there are changes happening, but I think it's important to very clearly communicate what, they're getting for their money, and kind of move forward from there. But it's a tough time right now with so many unknowns given COVID.
Brooks. Thumbs up from Ellen. Is that the extent of your comments, Ellen? Okay. I'll hold my tongue and not make a comment. But Councilmember, is that a thumbs up, Edna, or I'd like to talk? It's hard to tell. So, both? All right, Councilmember Abraham.
All right. So I think there's some really valid points being discussed here tonight. I am curious as to the rates that were being proposed for 2020, when I recognize we never opened up, but you could see that there was an uptick of rates between 2019 and 2020, and with just like a little rationale for why the 2020 rates weren't, or if they were considered for 2021. Where it was a pretty modest increase between 19 and 20.
Mayor and Council, after previous meetings, we have not instituted the rate changes, so they have not gone into place as of yet. And we do have Brian Gould and Bob Bruner online to talk a little bit, but they were not involved as actively in developing those rates. They wanted an opportunity after it was discussed to talk between themselves to decide what to do about the rates. And I think with the information we're getting tonight, I think it's pretty clear that it probably should be on hold and see what happens. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not a ton of money when you look at, our general fund is about, over $60 million. I don't know if either Brian or Bob want to talk about how those rates were necessarily developed, because they didn't develop them. I just think we should go from a clean slate and move forward without raising the rates and then discuss it in more detail. And I see Brian has come on, so I think he wants to talk a little bit. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. These rates were decided before my time as Recreation Director. Things that were taken into account is the wage increases for lifeguards, because we have had to raise our wages quite significantly to compete with the other areas, because lifeguard shortages is becoming a big issue for us. So that's one of the reasons. We did also, I know in the rates, they weren't really brought up last week, but there was going to be, the rates were going to stay the same if only the main pool was going to be open. So the rate increase was with everything open. Without everything open, the rate was going to be the same as last year. But like Mark said, Bob and I are evaluating it. We were hoping to list the rates and get it out by the beginning of May and start selling passes around May 10th. So we'll be talking tomorrow after your feedback and coming up with a plan from there. I appreciate all your feedback as well.
Thank you, Brian. And I want to make it very clear, like, no hard feelings towards you, Brian. I know you're tasked with a certain job, and so I don't want you to think that, I don't want anyone to think that this has anything to do with you personally by any means. I know you've worked.
I don't.
Yeah, I know. I know you know. I just want to make sure everybody else does too, because you're doing a great job, and I'm thankful to have you on board and appreciate it. So I appreciate the
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Abraham.
Mayor, just one other follow-up question, because we've talked a lot about, potential capacity limits, assuming the orders that are in place now may be in place for some or all of the summer. Is there any comment that can be made tonight about how, are there any plans, or is it possible for like a reservation system to be used, so that way, families coming to the pool with all of their gear come and find out they're at capacity limits? Is there any are there any plans to help mitigate that sort of dissatisfaction that may come about if there are capacity limits or limited use main pool only?
Thank you. Brian, I think you maybe started a little on it last week, or it came up a little bit, but if you could explain a little more, it'd be great.
Sure. So as of right now, we are planning on doing reservations with season pass holders having the first opportunity to sign up for reservations. We are doing two to 2.5 hour time blocks about 3 times a day, where we would have a half hour in between to do some cleaning and get everybody in and out. So our plan would be season pass holders will be able to sign up till the day of, and then the day of, dailies would be able to sign up online as well, doing reservations. And then if there's any spots open when people show up, we could let them in. But we are going to really push for reservations at this time. We're hoping it changes and we can go back to some type of normal, but at the beginning we will probably be doing the reservation system.
Okay, thank you very much.
We currently do that at the community center right now too, with the pool and gym and everything. So it's just going to be an extension of that, a bigger extension, obviously, but we already have it in place.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Edna, for the questions too. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I had one question as well. What about swimming lessons? Were you planning on doing swimming lessons at the aquatic center?
Yes, we do. We're planning on doing lessons at night and during the day. We're going to do about 4 kids per class. Right now we're doing 1 per class, but we are allowed to go up to about 4 per class. So we will be having swim lessons at the pool, yes, this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments, questions? I saw thumbs ups before. I mean, any other comments, thoughts? Okay, well, City Manager Miller, and appreciate you hearing us out. And Brian, thank you for popping in. And looking forward to having a bigger conversation about the aquatic center. It should probably happen this year, fall. I mean, I think we need to. We probably would have done it a year ago. You know how it's been. But I think it definitely needs to happen. And again, also that broader conversation of what services we want to be providing as a community for quality of life, what the expectations are on city staff to maximize revenue for our public facilities, and how we need to find that balance, because the city administration is dependent on our direction for how that's to go. So we need to add that into the conversation as well. Could we take a 5-minute break? Is everybody good with that? 5 minutes. It's 9:03. We'll be back 9:08 or so. All right. I got tired. What happened?
We're going right into I-5, right? Okay, then I'll just stay on.
Everybody ready? IT, you're ready? Yes, so.
We are.
All right, well, let's go back on the record. Next up on the agenda is I-5, Classified and Exempt Classification and Pay Plans. It'll be introduced by Human Resources Director Jeanette Netting. Jeanette, welcome. Nice to see you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. What you have before you for this agenda item is our classification and pay plans that resulted from the classification and compensation study, which began way back in 2018. This study included approximately a third of our City of Troy full-time employees and only those not covered by collective bargaining agreements. The purpose of the study was to evaluate and align our internal and external equity. And as my friend Nino did reveal earlier today, the last time this was done was approximately 20 years ago. And I had the pleasure of being hired right before that alignment as well. Anywho, the classification plan document groups job titles into pay grades. And the pay grade, the titles are grouped into the pay grades based on the jobs that the consultant reviewed. And what they did is they quantified it. So they gave a numerical value to things like education required, experience required, level of discretion exercised, responsibility for policymaking and planning, supervision, working conditions, and technology. So they looked at it and quantified those and then divided the positions accordingly. So this represents internal equity, or how the jobs compare to one another. Now, the pay plan, on the other hand, the other document, is a result of market surveys and is designed to maintain or advance our competitiveness. This represents the external equity, or how we compare to other similar employers. And the pay plan is designed to be adjusted annually to maintain our competitiveness. So the upside of that is that if this goes as planned, you'll see me annually updating those, which we haven't done for a long time. It's been since 2014 since we actually updated the pay plan. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. That's the item in a nutshell.
Thanks, Jeanette. Any questions from council? This is a long time coming. 2018 feels like forever ago this time. Must feel like that for you too. Councilmember Erickson Galt, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, I'd like to move resolution if that'd be appropriate. So I will move I-5 classified and exempt classifications and pay plans as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-5 classified and exempt classification and pay plans as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? No. All right. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is I-6, a request for salary increase increases, and it'll be introduced by both City Manager Mark Miller and City Attorney Lori Grigg Bloom. A double effort. Who's going to start?
Mayor, I can start. I can start on this. This is our request for a salary increase. And what we have requested is the increases that are consistent with the increases that were received by the rest of City Council. And I wanted to indicate that we have not had increases in our salary since 2019. The dates are a little bit different, so that's why there are two different proposed resolutions. And we thank you for your consideration, and we're hopeful that you will grant our request for increases. As you can tell, the resolutions have blanks in them because it's up to City Council to decide what those amounts should be.
Mayor? City Attorney Lynch. Mark, real quick, if I could, I just want to clarify, Lori, you said mistakenly that these are similar to the increases received by the rest of City Council. I think by the rest of exempt employees.
Yes, city employees, and I'm sorry for that. City Council certainly deserves increases, but that is not something that has happened.
All right. Appreciate that. I just wanted to make that very clear. So City Manager Miller, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. What I was going to say is Lori did summarize that appropriately and correctly, and I was going to identify the little misstatement too. City Council does not get salary increases, or hasn't since the 80s or whatever.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? I'd like to move I-6 Resolution A as it relates to City Manager. Resolved that the City Manager's salary shall be increased 2.5% effective July 1st, 2019, and 2.5% effective July 1st, 2020, and 1% effective January 9th, 2021, and 2.5% effective July 1st, 2021.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-6 Resolution A as just read into the record. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
Just want to say, yes, this is the exact same increase that all other employees have gotten. And I think the city manager has done a fantastic job in very difficult circumstances. And this is well deserved.
Well said. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, I'll move I-6 Resolution B. Resolved that the city attorney's salary shall be increased 2.5% effective July 1st, 2020, and 1% effective January 9th, 2021, and 2.5% effective July 1st, 2021.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-6 Resolution B as read into the record. Discussion. Councilmember Hamilton.
Same thing as before. done an incredibly good job in extremely difficult circumstances these last few years. So thank you for everything you've done.
Well said again. So I'm assuming no other discussion. I'll ask for the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. And does Ellen's cat get a vote as well? Ellen, thank you.
She actually meowed as she walked by. My apologies.
That counts as a vote.
And Mark and Lori, thank you for all that you have done for us. We worked on behalf of the city these past, several years in many respects, but we know you're working on extra cylinders, or operate on extra cylinders as we work through COVID, and we thank you. And just so the public is clear, there's been performance reviews and other aspects to this that are not being discussed right now currently, but this is not just coming out of nowhere. This is a thoughtful experience, and we do a lot of work with the city manager and city attorney. So thank you both. Next up is I-7, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, U.S. Communities OMNIA Cooperative Purchase, Troy Historical Village General Store Replacement Windows. And Brian Gould, our Recreation Director, is coming back. Hi, Brian.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The item before you is for the purchase of replacement windows for the Troy Historical Village General Store from Home Depot through the U.S. Communities OMNIA Purchasing Cooperative. Since this purchase was unexpected, a budget amendment is needed for a not to exceed amount of $20,000 from the museum's Buildings and Improvements General Repairs Capital Fund account. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Gould? Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I-7, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, U.S. Communities / OMNIA Cooperative Purchase, Troy Historical Village General Store Replacement Windows, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, that we approve I-7 Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, U.S. Communities OMNIA Cooperative Purchase, Troy Historical Village General Store Replacement Windows, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Next up is the consent agenda. Did anybody have any items they'd like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. A discussion, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm extremely proud of two items that are on this consent agenda, J9 and J10, and they are cost participation agreements for various road work getting done in our city. I posted on my social media, but we have a lot of work coming this year to kind of compensate for lost time from the I-75 rebuild. But these two projects are a fantastic example of how great our city staff is at leveraging federal, state, and county dollars to save our taxpayers money and have some of the best roads around here. J9 is a cost participation agreement for Adams, Long Lake to Square Lake. City's contribution is $300,000 for what is a $2.8 million project. And then the other J10 is a cost participation agreement for 2021 concrete replacement program with the Road Commission of Oakland County. Over $7 million worth of concrete repairs to various roads around the city. You already see Coolidge and Crooks are getting this. And the city only has to contribute a little over $700,000 for $7 million worth of road repairs. So great job to city staff to make this happen. This is going to be really good for our city. It'll be a little painful this year, but it's great to see that our roads are getting fixed and we're going to be in a good place after this year.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. We have K1, announcement of a public hearing. May 10th, 2021, we'll have the 2021-2022 budget public hearing. Tune in. We've handled public comment. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Are there any comments on the reports submitted this evening? Oh, Councilmember Hoderick.
I always like to point out the letters of appreciation to folks when I have a chance, and I see Glenn Lapin is getting a shout out from one of our restaurants, Fogo de Chao, regarding the assistance that he provided in helping them navigate COVID assistance. And I know this has had to have been a very crazy time for Glenn as he interfaces with all the multiple entities to try to, help support our businesses. And it's great to see that letter in there and recognition of the work he's doing. And just wanted to give him a shout out, seeing that on the agenda. I know we all do, and we all know that he's doing a lot. So Glenn, don't get tired. Keep rocking and rolling. We appreciate you. Thanks.
Very true. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crang, I think you put your hand up as well.
I did. I just wanted to call out the report 002C, the State of Emergency Update. So really want to thank Assistant City Manager Bruner for providing that data. And it's exactly what I was looking for and kind of getting at in our previous meeting that was in person, is wondering if there's a way that we as a council could consider potentially tying a decision, if we could find consensus, to a particular risk level in terms of when we may seek to go back in person, looking at how that has been laid out in the Michigan Safe Start plan. And so it's something that, maybe we could think about down the road if there's risk level C or risk level B or what makes sense, that might be something that we are very much tying this decision. So people know it's not political, it's tied to what are the factors going on in our own particular community at a point in time. So just want to raise that as an idea.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crang. I believe by the terms of our state of emergency, we'll have to address it at our next meeting. I see City Attorney Bloom nodding her head. I do like metrics. I do like looking at that. I'm not 100%. I'm necessarily following somebody else's when they didn't give us, when they didn't put us into the state of emergency to begin with. So it's a little tough for me to be totally dependent on that. But we definitely, in 2 weeks, we'll obviously have a very different outlook. And I think that the report, at least what we got tonight, was definitely a start in the right direction of having some data to look at. I don't know how, I don't know. I think we'll look at it at our next meeting maybe, and we'll look to each other and look to where we are at the county level and what we're hearing and our specific levels, and have to make a good decision then. Fair enough to say, but thank you for bringing that up. Additional comments on the reports? All right, council comments this evening. Councilmember Hamilton.
Did you say Councilmember Hammer time? It sounded like
Hammer time.
Throwback. That's okay. Thank you, Mayor. No, I was honored to help volunteer with the vaccination event that happened at the Troy Community Center on Thursday. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks joined. She's a fancy doctor and actually got to vaccinate people herself, which was really cool to see that. But it was an incredible event. It was ran by Federal Indian Health Service, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and our Recreation Department. And thank you to Brian Gould for everything he did to help make it happen. It was an incredible event. 1,600 people got their first Pfizer doses. And there were Troy volunteers there as well. And it was a fantastic event. And it was just so well run. And people, if you haven't been vaccinated yet, please go get your vaccines. I just read about how Beaumont now has walk-in clinics where you can just walk in without an appointment to get your first shot, and then they'll book your second shot 3 weeks later. It's a great, really right now, supply is starting to outweigh demand. So please get your shots, keep you and your family safe, and we'll get through this and be able to move on and all be together and go to concerts and do everything that we want to do together.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. And since you brought her up, it is Mayor Pro Tem Brooks' birthday today. So I feel bad. I'm sure, I don't know everybody's birthday all the time, so I don't want to single anybody out, but I do know it's Teresa's birthday. So happy birthday, Teresa, as well.
Thank you. There's no place I'd rather be than in a city council meeting for my birthday. I was just going to add on to Councilmember Hamilton's as well and just say it was a great event. Correction, I wasn't able to fully vaccinate because I have to do a CDC a course or whatever. So for May 13th, I'll be able to vaccinate, but I was able to mix up the Pfizer serums. So that was kind of fun for the injections. But still, it was good. You have to be a licensed physician or a registered nurse or pharmacist to be able to do it. So it was fun.
Thank you. Happy birthday. Additional council comments? Councilmember Chamberlain-Franco.
Also want to wish happy birthday to Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, and thank you to you and Councilmember Hamilton for your service in our community. So important at this difficult time. I also want to just take a second just to express my sympathies and just my prayers for our South Asian Indian residents who no doubt have loved ones, have relatives, have friends in India, which is going through a very significant COVID crisis. And this is what it means to be a global community in Troy, is to know that we have loved ones around the world and for us to stand by each other and support each other. So just want to say that my heart goes out to you and your loved ones who are around the world, and wish we could do more as a community to help, but do know that you're in our thoughts and prayers.
That's very nice. Thank you, Rebecca. Additional council comments? You commented out this evening. It's a good sign, maybe. All right. Well, there's no closed session this evening. So stay safe, everybody. Thank you, healthcare heroes, first and frontline responders, everybody who's working hard, essentially and inessentially, unessentially, but keeping us safe, keeping our everything going, keeping our groceries coming to us, all the stuff that we depend on. We thank you so much, and have a good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.